Actually, if tonight is not the night, they ought to just call off the season because the Portland Trailblazers are the opponent and they have flat out quit. And we'll get into that. We'll get into the Kings with a chance to celebrate for the first time since 2006. Jerry Reynolds in a moment, Ryan in Sacktown as well. Great to have you here on If You Don't Like That.
Audio Jungle.
Yes, we like If You Don't Like That a lot. Jerry, how are you?
I'm great. Really looking forward to tonight. And I think, as you said earlier, man, they've got to win this one. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Blazers aren't good if everybody's there, and they're certainly none of their key players are going to play. So you got to go get it.
Jerry, check out this. Okay, look at all the players that are not playing because of soreness. Okay. What a joke. Lillard shut down for the year. Calf tightness. Really? Nurkic, Simons, Reddish, all with soreness. I mean, to me, Jerry, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I think that they have quit on their fans. I think it's embarrassing for the league. It's a joke, Jerry. It's an absolute travesty.
Well, it really is. And on certain levels, I mean, that's the case where the league needs to look into this kind of stuff. And even the Players Association, which I know they never would, but it's total tanking. But the truth is, the four teams with the four worst records are going to each have 14% chances or whatever, and so the Blazers can't lose enough to get into that group.
Correct. It's a joke. So, it's a joke.
They're just tanking almost for no reason.
I did a rant on this today. I said, the Blazers fans ought to boycott the games. Nobody ought to go to the games. And the season ticket holders ought to say, you know what? We're not renewing our tickets until you refund us for the games that you quit on us. Seriously, that's how a team would stop doing that crap.
Yeah, it's going to take something. And, but it disappoints me, truthfully, with the players themselves because they could demand to play.
Yeah.
I always go back to the year, I think it's Michael Jordan's second year in the league. He had missed he got hurt early in the year with a broken foot or something. And, came back. They were going to keep him out the entire year. Jerry Krause planned to have him miss the year. He felt he could play late in the year and demanded to play. He played. He got him in the playoffs. And, of course, that was the year I think he had 61 or something against. But, I mean, that's the difference right there. He said, I'm healthy. I'm going to play. And, but you got guys today that are looking for reasons not to play as opposed to reasons to play.
Jerry, let's get back to the loss against Minnesota. That was an opportunity to just have an amazing celebration. It was the biggest game that had been played at the Golden One Center to date. And it's a trend that you scratch your head with. This Kings team is just not that good at home. On the road, they're very good, and at home, they're above average, but they're between average and good. It's so puzzling to me because the crowd has been great, and yet it's not enough to propel this team to wins. I don't understand it, quite frankly. I really don't.
Well, I've never seen anything quite like it, to be honest with you. I mean, to have a road record so good as they have, one of the very best in the league, and then at home be pretty basically average, maybe below average for home. I always remember, as you do, one of the Dick Motta years, the team won 24 games. They won 23 at home, as many as the Kings, and one on the road. But the bottom line is this is a good team. But, the Minnesota thing, they're a tough matchup for the Kings. I was telling somebody today, I said, they're a tough matchup for the Warriors, too. There's, it's just one of those teams that, boy, since they got Mike Conley, I think they're a notch better. And, the Kings can beat them. Don't get me wrong. I think they're capable of beating them. But you're going to have to – it's a tough matchup. That's all I would say.
Here's Haunted Horse saying, as a Blazers fan, he's glad that we're shutting it down. Well, that's what's wrong with sports. Can you imagine if every team that wasn't going to the playoffs shut it down, I mean, it hurts the integrity of the league. You should not be glad. You should be appalled. Okay. You ought to be absolutely livid. If you're a season ticket holder, I can't imagine fans are happy that they're paying that kind of money to see a team quit. Here's the other deal. The Blazers were still in contention to play in the play-in tournament when they did all of this crap. You know, they're quitting on it's the integrity of the game we're talking about. You should never be happy with a team with this many games left quitting, because that's what they're doing. They're quitting. And if you're happy being a Blazers fan, then that's foreign to me. Now, if there's like 2 games left, if there's maybe 3 games left, and you have a chance of getting that pick, then yeah, I understand it, but not in March. I mean, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. It really is.
And you know, it's the old thing too. It's like, okay, if somebody can guarantee you're going to get Wembanyama, who I think is a franchise type player potentially, but okay, tell me who the fifth player. How much better is he going to make you? The 7th player or the 9th player? It certainly appears to be a very, very average draft past one guy to below average. So, you know, basically, you know, rolling over like puppy dogs for a guy that probably won't start for you next year. I'm not sure what that proves.
Well, see, Dog, I disagree with you. I'd be shocked. I would be shocked if the Kings do not win the game tonight. I would be absolutely shocked. All right, so I want to get back to what you were just saying, you know, about the home court and everything. And you said you never quite seen anything like it. You know, we're getting to a point in the season after tonight, the Kings will clinch a playoff spot. They're in all likelihood going to be the 3 seed. We just talked about Minnesota. You know, the Warriors are, to me, with their championship pedigree, I don't know what's going on with Andrew Wiggins. So, you know, if he comes back, you know, that you got Kevin Durant, who I guess is playing tonight, the Phoenix Suns. Who do you think are the more difficult matchups for the Kings?
Well, the teams that would probably scare me the most would be the Phoenix Suns if Durant's healthy and playing at his best, number one. For me, probably the Warriors, just because they're the Warriors. I know they haven't played that way this year, and they've been terrible on the road. But I've always said, you know, coming to Golden One for the Warriors isn't a road game.
Right. They have Steph Curry the last time
nor
I
is
looked.
going down to San Francisco a road game for the Kings. So I would not like that matchup, those 2 matchups at all, for obvious reasons. I mean, certainly there's so many teams there's nobody I'd say you'd want to play. I mean, I think last week Dallas is the only team that I really like that matchup, but then they're probably not even going to be in the play-in.
Well, last time I looked, the Warriors have a guy by the name of Steph Curry, and beating him 4 times in a series is not an easy task.
No, well, he's an all-time great. You know, he, in his own way, he's helped change the game, and maybe as much as any player in history. And then they got a couple other guys that have got 4 championship rings with them. You know, I don't know if they haven't been as good this year. There's no doubt about that. They've been inconsistent, but I also know, you know, they will be a better team come playoff time. You know, they will. The old Rudy Tomjanovich statement about the Rockets, you know, never underrate the heart of a champion. And that's why they would scare me.
All right, let's talk about the Kings as we get closer to the end of the regular season. And after tonight, hopefully, you know, the Kings fans know for sure that this team is going to the playoffs. Where are you right now with Keegan Murray, who, you know, again, is going to be first-team All-NBA rookie? He's probably not going to be Rookie of the Year. I don't think there's any question that his future is very bright. There are games, though, when you look at him and you're like, gee, where was he tonight? Is that just what we should expect every now and then?
I think it is this year. You know, I mean, I think he's going to have those games because his game is so predicated on making some threes. Now, he's gotten better. You know, he's gotten better off the dribble and moving without you know, to me, he's improved every month he's been in the league. And that's remarkable for a rookie. And you gotta like what you see with Keegan. But having said that, you know, he needs his game is built around the 3 ball. When he can knock down a few early, get in a rhythm, then other things open up for him. But you know, as a Kings fan, you know, I'm thrilled to death with Keegan Murray. But I don't. I mean, I think he's a work in progress, just like this team is. That it's going to be year 3 or 4 before you see the real Keegan Murray. I always just point to Laurie Marketing now. One of the premier players in this league
Yep.
that the Bulls had and the Cleveland had, and they
Yep.
gave up too quick. Patience is a virtue when you got a good guy who works hard and has talent, and Keegan is all of that.
You've always said, don't give up on point guards and bigs too soon. And there have been so many examples. We can go back to the previous generation of players, Chauncey Billups, Steve Nash. Think about the careers they had and think about the teams that had an opportunity to cultivate them and, have them come up through their team that drafted them. And that didn't happen. Those are just two small examples.
Yeah, I mean, every year, you see guys kind of break out players. And, how about Brook Lopez, who's probably having the best year of his career. Now
Great
he's
point.
32, but, I mean, he's going to be defensive player of the year. And he and Adetokounmpo just fit perfectly. And he was available to anybody almost 2 years ago.
Don't forget that we will be with you for all the Kings coverage. Ryan will have the pregame. He'll join me at halftime and postgame. And speaking of Ryan, he is ready to go, and he joins us right here. Rhino, I want to get your opinion. All right, I put the graphic up, and I'll do it again, of the players that are not playing for Portland. And again, look at all of the soreness reasons or tightness, okay? It drives me freaking crazy. What's your take on this?
Well, granted, it drives me crazy too, but it would drive you crazier if it says load management or, out trying to get a higher draft pick lottery percentage.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not good for the NBA. And I thought Haunted Horse's comment was very interesting because that's how, teams are conditioning their fans to think. It's okay that these guys are sitting out because we'll have a higher percentage in the lottery. It's going to get us a better pick. But when in reality, like Jerry said, only the top 4 are going to have the 14%. So it's a tough thing. I don't know how we fix it.
Yeah, well, if there is really such a thing as the basketball gods, the Blazers will not be getting one of the top picks. But, again, it is what it is. We talk about the Kings now. So after the letdown, Ryan, of the Minnesota game, what do you think the atmosphere will be for Kings fans after the game tonight, assuming that they clinch? I mean, again, that was a real bummer the other night, but that's now in the rearview mirror.
I think it'll be the same reaction. I think they'll be a little bit more on pins and needles, but it's not going to take away from the excitement. Clinching's clinching. We know that they are pretty much locked into the 3rd seed. But I would be cautious about this Portland team tonight, Grant. They didn't have anybody in the first game after the All-Star break, and they played the Kings tough for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their recent scores. They're not even competitive, so that's what I'm going by. Jerry, another team that's really surprising me with how well they're playing is Memphis, right? I mean, they lost Brandon Clark for the year that people didn't even talk about. They're still without Steven Adams. They do have Morant back now, but they're really playing well.
They really are. I give a lot of credit to Jenkins, Taylor Jenkins, the coach. They're maybe the most physical team in the league. They really guard you. Some of it, Dylan Brooks will get on your nerves like a Draymond Green, but the guy's a tough buckaroo. And Jaren Jackson, he's a shot blocker and big time player. But they won last year a high percentage when John Morant was injured.
That's right.
That which I thought tells you a lot about the team. And they're just plugging in guys and they play. But I'm with you. It's like, boy, last year it surprised me how they could win so many games under every circumstance. And they're doing the same thing this year. And and developing guys. Desmond Bain is now really close to being an all-star.
Yes, he is.
Where'd he come from? Trey Jones, he'd start on probably 15 teams in the league as a starting point guard. So, they're going to stay second, and they're going to be a tough out.
Jerry, Ryan, let's go about postseason awards right now. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, All-NBA. Which team do you think they'll end up on? Jerry, I want to start with you first. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, clearly they're going to be on one of the 3 All-NBA teams. If not, then get rid of the damn thing.
Well, that's the way I feel. I mean, I think both probably, since the fact it's kind of a first go round in a sense for Fox, but I'd expect him to be on the 3rd NBA team, All NBA team. I think with guys that have been there before in some cases, and I'm not saying it's not deserved, but some guys will get there just because they've been there before.
I think 2nd and 3rd. I think Domas will be on the 2nd team behind Jokic, and I think De'Aaron will be on the 3rd team, although I think De'Aaron deserves to be much higher because I don't think there's 2 point guards that have played much better than him and led a team to a 3rd seed or 3 seed and close to a 50-win season after 16 years out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and not only that, his fourth quarters, and again, the stat that they have, the hero stat or whatever, I mean, it's through the roof. You can't ignore that. I mean, how many games do you think De'Aaron Fox won for the Kings in the final minute this year or in the final several minutes of a game, Ryan? It's got to be a lot.
I would think between 8 and 10 games easily, at least a quarter of their games.
Jerry,
well,
I mean, he's been
pressure,
unbelievable.
the pressure he puts on other teams' defense because he's so good in the fourth quarter. Even when he's not having maybe one of his best quarters, it opens up so many easy shots for everybody else. And yeah, I think he just has to be on one of those All NBA teams. The only thing that Sabonis' tough spot for him is that, Embiid and Antetokounmpo, and depends on what position they count those guys as. If they're centers, then he's not going to be ahead of Embiid, I don't think.
Yeah, no,
but Jerry.
Go ahead,
But
Ryan.
Jerry, let me ask you this. You got Jokic, who's the 2-time MVP, right? And Sabonis is just barely behind him in the points and assist stats and rebounding. So, I mean, how can that argument not be made that he should be higher than 3rd?
Well, you could make it, but you're not going to put him ahead of Embiid. There's nobody in the league would do that. and I don't think if, honestly, as good when they're both healthy at their best, I think a lot of Kings fans would take Embiid. He's unguardable. But you make a good point. There's not a big gap between the Joker and Sabonis, but there is a gap.
Sure.
And the Nuggets have won more games, and he's the reason they won more games. So, as much as I love Sabonis, I've been his big fan right along, but no, he shouldn't be ahead of those 2 guys.
Jerry, let's get this question from Cody about Trey Lyles' game. Are you a fan of him? I
am a fan of his. I think he's been a terrific pickup for this team. I think Monty McNair, really, they've gotten a lot of mileage out of him. He can play a little bit of backup 5 and certainly as a 4. He's been pretty consistent. He's a guy you can keep on your team. Is he the answer going forward? Probably not. But I hope the Kings keep Trey Lyles because he knocks down shots about as well as anybody and stays in his lane, doesn't try to do stuff he can't do. He's emerging as a really good NBA player.
Jerry, as we get to the last, let's say, 3 games, of course, the last home game is against the Warriors. The last game of the regular season is at Denver, which will be a meaningless game in all likelihood for both teams. How do you think Mike Brown should or will handle this rotation, let's say, in the final 3 games?
Well, that's a great question. I definitely think the last 2 games really would strike me, the Warriors Nuggets thing, because you really want guys healthy and fresh for the playoffs, and especially I look at Sabonis maybe as much as anyone. I mean, if you ever want to give a guy some rest, you better do it. I mean, that guy plays one way, and I certainly wouldn't play in the last game of the year, and might limit minutes in the before that, and same way with some other guys. So he knows his roster and he knows who needs rest and all, but I think that's what you got to do, especially once your position is established. Make sure your guys that need rest get rest.
Ryan, you know what's interesting is that Warriors game, and it's a very distinct possibility. The Kings could, in all likelihood, be in a position where they control who they want to play in that first round, meaning not the Warriors. And a win or a loss
Yep.
could be the reason. So, I agree with what Jerry just said, but that's a very interesting game for a variety of reasons. Number one, if you are going to play the Warriors in the first round of the playoffs, do you really want to go head to head with them and go into the playoffs if you were to lose that game? If you beat the Warriors and you end up playing them in the first round, and it's determined then that by winning, you're going to play them in the first round, maybe you don't play anybody. It's a very interesting chess match that's going to be going on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not going to be if the playoffs ended or if that game was today, then you got Minnesota sitting behind. That's not going to be an easy matchup for the Kings either. But I'm of the opinion I would rather see the Kings get a good look at a team just like we did Minnesota the other night. I know Karl Anthony Towns was out because, then you get a feel for him and it's not a feel out game in that first game of the playoffs if that's who you're going to see. The Kings run so much, or their offense is so much predicated off of decision makings and the looks they're getting that I'm not so worried about the Warriors catching on to, what plays they're running per se.
It's interesting. And the guy, remember, the Kings have not played the Warriors since the beginning of the season. And it was the most ridiculous scheduling. They had 3 games in like the first 3.5 weeks of the season. So, Jerry, I hate the way the scheduling works sometimes in this damn league. You shouldn't be playing a team in your division 3 times in the first 3.5 weeks of the season.
No, it really, and the teams are so different now in important ways. And, to Ryan's point, I think it's true. I will say this. I think if there's anybody that really has a good feeling for who the Warriors are and what they do, it's the guy sitting on the Kings bench.
Yes.
And so, and I do think there's a conundrum there because both the Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves are not teams, you'd feel real comfortable about starting off with. But the truth is, that's the way the West is. That's the playoffs. You're going to have a tough go however you go. And what would winning that game mean, or what would it affect? I don't know. I mean, would losing to the Warriors have a meaningful effect on the playoffs? I couldn't tell you. Would it have any effect? I couldn't tell you that either. I think the bottom line is the playoffs are the playoffs, and they're different. That's all.
That's right. Well, I wouldn't want to be playing Phoenix assuming that Kevin Durant is there, and I wouldn't be crazy about playing the Warriors. I'd be okay playing the Clippers. I'd be okay playing New Orleans. I'd be okay playing OKC. I'd even be and again, I wouldn't be crazy about playing the Lakers if they're healthy. But, the reality, Jerry, as you said, I mean, everything in the West has been like this all year. And we have to look at this from the other perspective. There aren't a lot of teams that are going to be licking their chops to play the Kings thinking, gee, how am I going to outscore that team 4 times? That's not going to be easy. When the Kings are making their shots, they're really very, very difficult to beat. I mean, we saw them play their A game and take the Bucks down to the wire. These teams are not going to want to be like going, oh, wow, we got to get in a shootout with the Kings with their offense and how they score over 120 points a night.
No, I agree. And it's a little bit like what Ryan was talking about earlier. It's like, how do you scout for the Kings? I mean, I don't think they necessarily know how they're going to score from night to night where the shots, they just take what the defense gives them, a very unselfish team. And so, I agree 1,000%. I mean, there's nobody that the Kings should just be looking forward to getting in the first round, because I think there's all tough matchups, but then it goes both ways. So it's as balanced. I've never seen it this balanced in the West. I mean, Denver's clearly the number 1 team, and they scare nobody, and yet they could win it. There's no doubt they could win the West.
Yep. Well, Jerry, to your point, you look at Denver right now, 51 wins. 51 wins wouldn't usually win the West. Denver is still a very, very good basketball team. But in terms of the national media and, teams, we saw what Draymond Green said about possibly playing the Kings in the first round. I think the thing teams are looking at is the inexperience. I don't think it's so much the offense, it's the inexperience. And so that's why they kind of got that circle around the Kings in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's true. They're not particularly experienced, not compared to somebody like the Warriors, uh, for sure. But I will say this, Sabonis has been in quite a few playoff games. And
That's
so is
right.
Kevin Herter has been, Barnes has been in quite a few
Yep.
big playoff games. So it's not as, empty playoff experience as sometimes the media seems to think. And the fact that Kings haven't been there for 16 years has nothing to do with several of the current players that are key players.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah, I would think, the players that we're really zeroing in on are, Keegan Murray, Davion Mitchell coming off the bench, those type of players, which, pretty much every team has players like that. As Jerry said, Sabonis, obviously Harrison Barnes has won a championship. There have been some others. And then, again, it is the playoffs. It is different. And as tremendous as De'Aaron Fox has been in the regular season, this is going to be his first taste of
Yep.
playoff basketball. And you don't know until you see it.
No, you can't. I mean, it's as different. Playoff basketball is as different as going from preseason basketball to regular season basketball. I mean, it gets more. Officials will never say it, but the game gets more physical, and how that will impact certain guys. You just don't know till they get out there, and some guys relish it. I'd say a guy like Davion Mitchell probably would benefit.
Yep.
And he, even though he's not had playoff experience, he's had the college championship experience at the biggest stage, and
Yeah.
that's a pretty big stage too. So, we'll see. I mean, you can't know what you can't know, but
Yeah.
I think this team's going to go get their points, and they're going to be hard to guard. That's a fact.
The games becoming more physical in the playoffs, to me, is not favorable to Sacramento because they're not a very physical team, Ryan. You and I have talked about that so often on our shows after games.
Yeah, it's not favorable. Sabonis, he always plays physical, but besides that, the Kings do struggle with that and the length as well, because usually physical comes along with length. So they're going to have to find a way to match that level, and maybe they do. Maybe they turn it up, they get a taste of it, and they're able to step the game up.
Jerry, what'd you think of the NCAA tournament as we get ready for the Final Four? And Mr. Aztec over here, Mr. San Diego State alum Ryan, and the other. Well, I mean, UConn's not that crazy, but everyone else. I mean, it's again, we've never seen anything like this. So, Did you watch all the games, Jerry?
I watched really when they got to Final 16. I really started watching. By the way, Ryan, I think you got by with a questionable call there, but that's okay.
Oh, let's go, Jerry. Let's debate it.
But anyway, no, I mean, like I say, you guys deserve to win. And truth is, probably Creighton did too. And you could say that about a lot of teams along the line. Kansas State probably as good as anybody, and they got beat. But it's where it's going to be, Grant. I think for a long time now. I mean, with the transfer portal. A lot of mid-major schools really have adults playing basketball, not just 18-year-olds, and that really makes all the difference. I mean, I was kidding with Carmichael Dave. I said, "There's, Florida State and Florida." Wonder now, wait a minute, Florida Atlantic and Miami in the Final Four. What the hell are we doing? I mean, you'd have to ask that question if you're the AD at one of those schools. But it's interesting. I mean, I don't think there's any great teams. To me, UConn looks like easily the best team coming in, and doesn't mean they'll win. I'd say any of the forts there can win, or they wouldn't be there. But it's interesting. I mean, the days of dominant UCLA teams or Indiana teams or Las Vegas or Duke, the teams that went into the tournament and you knew it's like short of injuries, they were probably going to win the championship. Those days, I think, are gone.
Ryan, you going to Houston, buddy?
As of right now, I am not, but
Okay.
that is subject to change like that. So.
Jerry, did you watch the end of the game with the Warriors and the Pelicans?
I didn't.
Right.
I was still pouting from the Minnesota game, and I decided to watch a movie. So
as far as Draymond should have been ejected, I didn't see it either, but I would say, he should have been ejected without even knowing. Okay. So
Well, I saw the replay of it, and yeah, he should have been ejected.
Yeah.
I think Draymond is a lot of things, but he's very smart in that regard. He knows once he's got his first technical, he could just about hit a guy with a hammer in the head, and then not call it. And I think that's on the officials. At some point, you can't worry about who has one technical and who you can't kick
No.
out. If they
Shouldn't
if
have
you're
any
gonna
bearing
call a
on it.
technical on guys for like a Luka Doncic making little signs like that, but you give a pass to a guy for kicking somebody.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just but he's got it figured. Once you get that first one, they don't want. Your refs will go the extra mile not to throw you out.
Yeah.
Unless you're Malik Monk and you say the magic word.
Yeah. Well, there again, it's like, to me, Draymond's a lot like DeMarcus Cousins used to be. If you really wanted to really call the game, those guys should not be past the first quarter of any game.
Yeah.
If you really get down to it, you just by berating officials and the emotion of questioning every call that they do, that those are supposed to be technicals. But guys, certain guys just do it so much. The old saying, "Squeaky wheel gets the grease," and Draymond gets a lot of grease for it.
Jerry, we get this question a lot as it relates to Rashawn Holmes. And so you've coached, about rotations, and you always said, there's always the best line, this isn't Little League baseball. Not everybody gets to play 3 innings. You can't play everybody. But what's your take on Holmes not being part of the rotation?
Well, I'm surprised by it, to be honest, and I certainly respect Mike Brown and his own decisions of what works best for him. I've always thought that Rashawn probably would be a little better backup than Metu personally, because he's more physical. And, and he certainly plays different than Domas, but I certainly think we've seen in the past, he's so good in screen and rolls, and he's an automatic 15, 18-foot shooter. It just seemed to me like, he would have something to bring there, but to Mike Brown's credit, he feels like that he wants to go with a different, more athletic, maybe less physical guy there, and certainly has worked out. But yeah, I've always thought from day one that, geez, if you're only going to play a guy 10, 15 minutes, probably stay with a more physical guy. So you have between Domas and Holmes, you'd have a little more physical presence there.
All right, so let's get some predictions. Ryan, Kings tonight. I don't think there's any way they lose. How many points will they win by?
I don't think they're covering. The spread's at 14. I'm going to say 11. I think the Kings win by 11 tonight.
All right, I got the Kings winning by 28 points. Jerry, what do you think tonight?
Oh,
I got 17.
Okay.
Kings hit 17.
All right.
And would I bet on that? Hell no, I wouldn't. Would I put no?
Listen, I don't know what the final score is going to be. I'm just having fun like everyone else. But I don't care about what happened against Minnesota. This isn't Minnesota. They're playing Portland. Okay, they're playing a team that has quit. They're playing a team that just, there is no reason at all for this game to be even remotely close. There's just not. Period. Now, we know what happens in the NBA. We've been down this road before, where the Kings this year have lost to some bad teams who are injured, and we've been down that road. But that better not happen tonight. They lost to a good team the other night, 119 to 115. Was it disappointing? Yes. But Minnesota's not chopped liver. Tonight, they're playing chopped liver. Period.
Yeah, it's a Portland Reserve G League team.
Yes.
And Ryan pointed out rightly after this All-Star break, they gave the Kings a little run, and they will because they've got NBA players. They're not top-level NBA players, but they're NBA players. And so if the Kings come out, and just keep the pressure on, pressure pace, and play a little inside out, at some point the Kings will get their 120 plus, and the Trailblazers won't.
Amen, Jerry.
So, Ryan, you got the pregame coming up in a little bit, right, buddy?
Yes, sir. Locked and loaded and ready to go.
Absolutely. And then I will be on at halftime and post game. Ryan will be joining me, and hopefully tonight we have some good news. Jerry, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, and you guys get the job done tonight.
Yeah.
Come on now. Bring a win home.
Thank you,
I took
Jerry.
I took full responsibility the other night because I was cocky, saying there was no way the Kings were going to lose to Minnesota. They weren't going to let the fans down. The Timberwolves had played the night before. They didn't have Cat. I'm like, there's no way after waiting 16 freaking years that the Kings are going to let their fans down and lose tonight. And what happened? They lost. So I took ownership of that, Jerry. I took ownership of that.
Okay, well, you won't have to tonight.
Jerry, if the Kings don't win tonight, Ryan may be doing the show by himself. Okay.
I was going to say, yeah, if they don't get a win by one of these two, yeah, you may not. I don't know where I'll be next Wednesday. I don't know where it'll be. I might be hiding somewhere.
Computer's not working again, right?
Yeah, that's it. We'll go with that.
Jerry, have a good week.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one, Jerry.
Good stuff right there. All right. So what would it take? Is it just a matter of travel arrangements, or is it a ticket? What's the big obstacle to get to Houston?
Airline ticket. That's it.
Wow.
Everything else is set in stone. So anybody knows
how about San Antonio? Is that all booked too? Because San Antonio to Houston's 2.5 hour drive.
I have not looked at that.
Well,
I actually
you need to talk to Mr. Travel Agent here. Okay.
I didn't. Yeah, I know. I did not use my resources well here. I did not.
Yep. Okay. Well, you go look at flights to San Antonio. Okay, because it's a fairly quick drive from San Antonio to Houston.
Cool. I'm on it. I got my homework before the pregame.
Awesome. All right, buddy. Talk to you in a little bit.
Sounds good. Thanks, Napes.
Good stuff right there. And want to tell you that if you have a plumbing issue, go to New Works Plumbing. That's right. New Works Plumbing has a fix for you. SackServicePlumbing.com or call the number on your screen. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. Hey, if you are new to the channel, give us a thumbs up and please subscribe if you have not already done so. Ryan and I have a lot of stuff coming your way later today. Ryan with the pregame. I will be halftime, postgame with Rhino. Have yourself a good rest of the day. And Kings fans, tonight better be the night.